Good evening. It's 5:40 Thursday evening. Not that it matters. Anyway, I had a few minutes. Thelma's downstairs making supper, and we're having some homegrown produce tonight with our supper. We're having some homegrown beets and homegrown potatoes, along with our stuffed pork chops, which are not homegrown, but they're going to taste good tonight. She pulled some other stuff from rutabaga. She's got some of that. Not that's for supper tonight, but she picked another one out of the garden. And we've had a lot of other stuff over the past few weeks: beans and peas and carrots, so on and so forth. Anyway, good stuff. It's been a quiet couple of days, relatively speaking. We've had our two youngest grandchildren here in the mornings, basically, for homeschooling. We've started school this year. We're helping out on Wednesdays and Thursdays with their homeschool education using Abeka book material this year. That's new for them. They've used other things in the last few years. Anyway, we like Abeka. We used it with our two sons near the end, the last few years of their education through the 9th grade. They went to public high school, Edward Little in Auburn. But anyway, I like the Abeka material, although Forrest and I were working on some sentence types today, declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory. And some of the examples they gave him to identify, a couple of them were from poetry. One was Longfellow. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And, I don't think they were appropriate. They could have been anything. They could have been declarative, interrogative, probably exclamatory, but they weren't blatantly exclamatory. So it's confusing, and it doesn't need to be like that. So I think we're going to just kind of skim over some of this stuff, and I explained to him, I said, yeah, those could go anywhere. Anyway, we'll get through it. He's learning. That's the important thing. One of the items that I had up on my wall, which I've taken down now, I'm going to make room for some other stuff, is I've got this Native Tribes of North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. I bought this map maybe a couple of months ago. I don't know. I saw it on Facebook, and I was like, oh, and it looks a lot better in the picture here than it does in real life, because it's very dark. It's very hard to read. I need a bright light to read it. But I have Native heritage. In fact, right up here in the upper right-hand corner is Massasoit Wampanoag. He was the chief of chiefs at Plymouth Plantation for the first Thanksgiving in 1621 with Governor William Bradford, who is a ancestor of Thelma's. So we both go back like 10 generations. I go back to Massasoit Wampanoag. She goes back to Governor William Bradford. So we both had family there at the first Thanksgiving, which is really cool. A few years ago, we bought books. The Plymouth book that Governor Bradford wrote, and then there is a Massasoit book that was published about 100 years ago. And we bought books for all 6 of our grandchildren. So they'd all have their own personal copies. We printed our family tree back to those 2 men so that they'd have copies of that, and it's really cool. I'm glad to have that map. There's a lot of writing on there. It's very dark. Like I said, I need to put a bright light on it. Sometimes use a magnifying. There was a bigger copy, but I didn't want to pay extra for the bigger copy. There's a smaller one too, which I can't imagine using. But I'll read the whole thing eventually here this fall, and maybe get a frame for it. That would be nice. I've got a frame of Israel, a map of Israel here. Thelma brought back from Israel back in I'll tell you,